Thank you very much. Good evening, Navika, and good evening to all my esteemed panelists. Look, I am not superstitious, Navika, but I'm convinced that it is only through black magic that one can instill some sense into Rahul Gandhi. और नाविका आज राखी का दिन है, आप मेरी बहन हैं, इसलिए आपसे मेरी एक ख्वाहिश है, दरखास्त है कि आप मुझे आप ढाई मिनट मुझे दीजिए, क्योंकि ऑपोजिशन की बात वो चाहता है कि हम इन्हीं मुद्दों में उलझे रहें, काला जादू, काला मैजिक, कपड़े, ये वो। कुछ हद तक बीजेपी भी ये चाहती है, बट अवे फ्रॉम द रेटरिक और सिलीनेस ऑफ दिस होल इशू, we the citizens must now take the role of a constructive opposition, because our opposition parties are destructive. I am convinced of it. So please give me 2.5 minutes. राखी के टाइम पे आपका भाई आपसे रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा है, because I want to delve into the real issue.
राखी में वैसे बहनों को दिया जाता है, बहनों से लिया नहीं जाता. Anyway, take your 2.5 minutes.
ये so थोड़ा उल्टा हो गया, but आप इतने उदारीन हैं कि मतलब आप ये कर सकती हैं. But Navika, yes, unemployment is a serious concern, irrespective of the COVID-induced downturn that is slowly on the mend, thankfully, or cyclical factors like high interest rate, weak bond market with bond issuance down 10%, low credit growth, high cost of borrowing. The economy has been in a bad shape, irrespective of COVID. But you know why that is? और यहाँ पे काला मैजिक आता है कांग्रेस का, because Modi has been following Congress socialist policies, and any deviation from them has been vetoed by the Congress itself. Look, as far as the economy is concerned, no one has been more critical of Mr. Modi than I. But it is the Congress that has supported Modi in pushing India into an economic mess. Let me explain. One, we have 1,825 PSUs, quarter of them are non-functional. A fifth of our annual budgetary allocation of 28 lakh crore goes in propping up PSUs. Except Air India, there has been zero privatization in the last 8 years. The PSUs that are sold are bought by other PSUs, PFC, LIC, NTPC buying REC, Coal India, THDC and NEPCO. But who objects to them being sold? Yes, Congress. Two, nationalized banks are rife with corruption and have NPS totaling 6 lakh crores. But who objects to their privatization? Yes, Congress. Three, there is no incentive for private companies to set up shops because of zero land reforms. But who blocked the land acquisition bill? Yes, Congress. Four, average state debt to GSDP is 35%, highest in 15 years. But who supports loan waivers and freebies? Yes, the Congress. 5, agriculture contributes only 13% to our GDP, and yet 44% of our 485 million strong labor force is involved in it. In the West, it is 2%. Production to purchase, the entire chain is archaic, almost medieval. But who objected to the land reforms, farm reforms? Yes, Congress. 6, Modi once derisively called Manrega scheme as gadde khodna. But who praised Modi when he increased Manrega budget multifold? Yes, Congress. Finally, Navika, on unemployment. And here the tragedy really hits you. 91% of our labor force is in the informal sector. The only data we have is through EPFO, the formal sector jobs, or a ramshackle 5-year NSSO survey. One cannot have a meaningful discussion, academic or political, on jobs unless we know how many new jobs were created per ready labor force every year during the UPA and the NDA. All else is finger pointing. Indian scientists can send a satellite to Mars, but Indian economists cannot furnish simple info. Now we got 10 seconds. If a common citizen can give all this data wearing black, why can't Rahul? I much rather he wore some common sense than that silly black attire. I'm afraid I would have preferred if the BJP spokesperson, the erudite Mr. Kohli, a good friend, rebutted Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, because in 40 seconds he spoke 4 absolute lies and they weren't corrected. They must be corrected. Number 1, Narendra Modi never said that he will bring back all black money in 100 days. Never. Number 2, Narendra Modi never said that he will put 15 lakhs in everyone's bank account. Never. Number 3, contrary to what he's saying that the GDP per capita of Uttar Pradesh actually dipped, it increased from 47,000 to 65,000 in the last 5 years of UP government. And number 4, what he is saying about 10 lakhs, he should know, I don't know whether he's an economist or not, but it's embarrassing being a scientist explaining to him that write-off and waiving off loans is a totally different kettle of fish. So the loans have been written off. The loans have not been waived off. There is a different thing. If the loans were waived off, then yet what he's saying is correct. They can never be recovered. But if the loans are written off, that is an RBI guideline that all banks have to take their bookkeeping. Good evening, Rahul. You've really summed it up perfectly. I think there are three important issues here. Let me delve into them one by one. First, you're absolutely right. Look, intelligence and rationale and logic has never been the strong point of these leftists. So, it is amusing to note the hypocrisy of those who called for the boycott of Kashmir Files and Vivek Agnihotri, as you rightly put it, now lamenting the boycott of Lal Singh Chadda. These crybabies, mostly, as I said, mediocre leftists and darbaris, failures in life, as I call them, wail the moment the shoe is on the other foot. In the last 75 years, they have reveled in boycotting, cancelling, censoring hundreds of films, actors, directors, producers, singers, anchors, who they felt professed an ideology opposite to theirs. Heck, they even charged Utpal Dutt with sedition for Dusapner Nagri. They jailed him for 7 months for Kalol. They banned Balraj Sahni, who was a communist, for Jadoo Ki Kursi. They banned the film Andhi, banned film Kissa Kursi Ka. There are hundreds of examples. But now they are running scared because the non-left or right is doing the same to them and their ideology. Coupled with this, Rahul, is also a truth that Bollywood has a clique that pushes Hindu phobia and then expects the viewer to accept it, knowingly or subconsciously. There is a refreshing Twitter handle by the name of Gems of Bollywood, started by journalist Swati Goyal Sharma and an ITN Sanjeev, that has ruthlessly exposed what has been a Hindu-phobic and Hindu-mistic bent of Bollywood since decades. हमें पता भी नहीं चलता था, हमें पिलाई जाती थी चीजें. Layered on top is the rampant selectivity. Leave alone critiquing Islam, वो तो बहुत दूर की बात है. Bollywood has hailed and revered it. Look, Hindus are tolerant and accepting of mocking. That's how great reforms have happened in this great religion. Samskara, you can today, that means you call it an anti-Hindu film, was a well-accepted film, although it was banned by the Congress. But to always selectively highlight Hinduism's ills, to always mock only Hinduism, displays a mindset of fear and awe of the other religion. Number two, it is also worth pondering, Rahul, that while boycott, as you said, is a legitimate right of an individual, absolutely true, as a society, we will become monochromatic and cleansed of all diverse views if we stretch boycotting to its limits that the left doesn't want. For example, I disagree with the views of the actor Swara Bhaskar, but should I stop buying Harpic, for which she is the ambassador for? What is Harpic's fault if Swara's views are irrational and laughable? And what is my toilet's fault? Tomorrow, if we don't like the views of Amitabh Bachchan, should we boycott administration of polio drops to our kids for which he is the ambassador? Finally, very briefly, on the issue in Chadda itself, Rahul, as a scientist, I look at evidence and past precedents. And on both counts, it is difficult for me right now to say that Lal Singh Chadda has bombed at the box office because of Amir Khan's anti-Modi, anti-current atmosphere or anti-Hindu propaganda. If this was the case, then three idiots that came after Amir Khan called Modi a murderer and wanted him jailed and hated BJP and its policies openly wouldn't have become a big hit. Also, Dangal, Amir's biggest hit, came 2 years after the Hindu-phobic film PK and a year after his infamous comment on India being unsafe. So Dangal should have tanked as well. So I think the tanking of this film might just be due to it simply not being with the audience. Yes, I really admire my good friend Sanjay. Don't go by his appearance, physical appearance. He's only 8 years old.
Yeah.
Born in 2014. Because before 2014, while he was in the Congress, he doesn't even want to acknowledge that 25 films were banned just by UPA 1 and 2. 25 films were banned and he kept silent. Then there was no intolerance. There was no emergency. There was no censorship. Sanjay ji chup the. Sab creative freedom mil rahi thi. That is what I'm saying. Sanjay is only 8 years old. He is the Benjamin Button of all panelists.